At least we have a mutual interest in history. Yeah, I know. I've never been to a reason. Very possible, boys and girls, this is Miss Levy. All right, she's here to speak with you. So please, respectful, and give her your full attention. All right.
Thank you. Do I need this or can I just, I don't like sitting. I'm too short. You won't see me. So do I need to speak to this or can you hear me? I'll stay in front of you. See if it works for you. Hi, thank you for wanting to listen to me. Can everybody hear me without a mic on? Yes. No need. I can't hold it in my. Now we know it's not going to. So I was born the year Hitler came to power, not war, power. Hitler came to power before he went to war. Anybody knows the year? That's my birthday.
33.
Oh, beautiful. You deserve an A already. Most people don't know. Most schools don't know, really. So you know your history a little bit. So I was born in a small town. The name was Chodorów, Poland. The time I was born, it was Poland. My father was 18 when he was a soldier in the First World War, which was 1914. He was a soldier for the German army. Why? Because Poland was the German Empire at the time. It was the Kaiser, the whole story by itself. When the war ended, he survived. He came back to Chodorów, and he always told us how bad it was. The inflation was enormous. He used to say you needed a sack full of money to buy a loaf of bread. The next day you needed double. So people should have known, politicians should have known, the people knew that it's going to be another war because you can't live under such conditions. That's when Hitler came to power. He started giving lectures and blaming the Jews. They lost the First World War because the Jews didn't participate, the Jews didn't give money, the Jews were traitors, and it was all a lie. But his book, Mein Kampf, describes it. That's how he came to power. We'll leave that alone because this is not where I am aiming at. I just want to give you an idea. Everybody can hear me?
Yeah.
1930. By the time the war ended, took a little time. He got married later because he had to make a living. He became so. We weren't rich or we weren't poor. My time when I was born, but everybody was poor. Everybody was poor. We lived in the center of town. It's a square. It's called Rinnig. Rinnig means square, marketplace. The city is small. We had about 5,000 Jews in it, that's all. We had a beautiful synagogue made out of wood. I'll never forget that synagogue. Temple. Jews lived together next to each other. I call it made their own ghetto because this is what they're comfortable with. Most Jews lived next to each other. We lived in the center of town in my paternal grandparents' house. My grandfather owned a house. It was like a 2-story. All the family lived there. My father had a store. He was a merchant. He was selling material, yard goods. And he was very good at it. And by the time I was born, we still lived in the same building. We had no more than 2 rooms. We had 2 children, no more than 2 rooms, kitchen and 1 bedroom, and I don't know where else we don't remember the details. But life was okay. I remember. Don't remember anti-Semitism. It was beginning to get better in my time. My parents worked. My sister went to school. I knew nothing what's going on, and for that matter, everybody else didn't know. Like the Jews in Poland did not add the dots what's happening for the Jews in Germany. Communication is not like today, that's for sure. There was no phones, okay? So people came over and told you what's happening when Germany came to power. BDS, I'm sure you all know what BDS stands for. We have it here now. Didn't start now. It started then in 1935. When Hitler came to power in Germany, he started BDS. He took away the rights from the Jews. But the Jews in Poland didn't somehow connect. That it might be here, in what's happening there. Let's put it this way. Leadership didn't know, which I blame always the Jewish leadership. Why didn't you get together and see what's happening? Like it now, anti-Semitism is beginning again, and the Jewish leadership still finding excuses for it. Everybody finds excuse, and that's what the Jews in Poland did when they heard what's happening in Germany. However, 1938, when was Kristallnacht in Germany, the Jews began to understand this is a little bit different. For 2 reasons they didn't understand. Number 1, communication. And number 2, they never had an experience like that. Jews had pogroms for all their lives. You know what a pogrom? Pogrom means killing a little bit, just coming into a town and wanting to kill or disrupt or loot. And then life would go on. So they figured this shall pass too. It's something going on in Germany. It will pass. How will it get to Europe, to Germany? Far, still, how will it will pass. But it didn't. Some people understood and started running, but the majority did not. 1939, Germany went to war. I was occupied from the Russians, where my husband, on the other hand, I'm closer to Eastern Europe, closer to Ukraine, Russia, where the real Poland is closer to Germany. My husband was occupied by the Germans from 1939. When the Germans walked into his place, my husband was 12 years old, it took him, the 2 brothers, and the father to labor camps right away. I had the Russians from 39 to 41. So we knew something is going on, right? Why? Because many Jews ran away from the occupied Germany into the occupied Russia, to that part. When the Jews came there, of course, everybody shared their rooms with them. They told us what's happening, that giving us an example that what's happening. But still, the depth of it, no one understood. No one. This was something really very foreign to the Jews. The Jews that stayed in the occupied Russia, we were okay till 1941. 41, the Germans attacked Russia and Poland. Nobody put up a fight. Poland didn't put out the munitions. Nobody put up a fight. The Russians weren't equipped. They weren't ready. They didn't expect it. They started running fast. So my town, small town, but a very vibrant town. It had a train station, which is a big deal. It had a lumber yard and a sugar factory. When people started running on the train, the young people that could get on the train, because the soldiers were using the trains to get out of Europe, going deeper into Russia, going further out. My father realized that we have to do something, but we could not get on the train. He had two small children. I had an older sister than I am. So what does he do? There was no cars, okay? If there was a car, it must have been only from the government. So what does he do? Takes a horse and buggy and starts running. How far can a horse and buggy get you? 2 or 3 towns later, he realizes he can't get on the train. So he says to my mom, you know what? We can't get on the train. In no way are we going to get into deeper Russia because the Germans are walking so fast, they're occupying each town. He says, I think we're better off going back to our hometown. At least there, everybody knows us. They were born there. Great-great-grandparents were born there. So already his mind was thinking forward. Hey, I'm going back to the place where everybody knows me. Okay, which was smart. We come back to Khodorov soon right away when the Germans walk in. It didn't take long because they didn't fight. Okay, the first day the Germans walked into Khodorov, as young as I was 8, I think, by that time. All I remember, the square was bigger than this much square. They commanded all the Jews to come out, all that lived together. Those that lived a little further away didn't come. Most lived together, out, everybody out. We're coming out, my father and holding my sister, I'm on the right, my sister on the left. All I remember, because I was so short, is the boots, the German boots. I was impressed with their boots. They're tall, handsome soldiers, dressed well. They weren't tired. I remembered so vividly what they looked like. They weren't tired because they didn't have to fight. They walked into each town. But their voices, screaming and yelling, dehumanizing at us, giving us orders. From now on, you are no longer citizens. You have no right. Life ended there. Whatever you have belongs to us. Everybody has to go to work. Nothing talking about what you do with children. Everybody has to wear an armband. Bayasi was a white armband, 5 inches the width, and a blue star in the center. Everybody must wear curfew. Dehumanizing us only by the way they were acting. Everybody standing there frozen, realizing life is ended. And then this was their model of giving you fear. They take one man that had a small little beard, not just a small little normal beard, push him in the center on his hands and feet, and a German puts his foot on his back, he's like this, and says to us, just like you sitting here and I'm talking to you, from now on, this is your destiny. You have no longer any rights whatsoever. We come upstairs to the apartment. My father turns to my mom and says, now I understand. Life is ended. I don't think any of us are going to make it. None of us. And then he says to himself, talking to each other, unless we have foresight and unless we get help from the outside, we are not making it. My father was lucky, got a job working in the lumber yard. Why lucky? Because not only Jewish slave labor worked there were normal people working there. It's a big lumber yard. I'm not going to give you the details, the, the way, the behavior of them, but I'm going to tell you exactly a few things what happened. So my father decided that my sister was older than I, 4.5 years older. If I was 8, she was 12. So he says to my mom, I don't want the kids to go out in the street. They have to stay home when we go to work. Why? Because if I wear the armband, the German knows I'm Jewish. If I don't wear it, I don't look Jewish. Absolutely not. No, nothing on me that's written Jewish. And I spoke a perfect Polish because Polish was my mother tongue. I knew no other language. So it's perfect. So if I go out in the street by myself, the German will let me go by 100%. But the Poles or the Ukrainians will point to me, go to the German officer and say, she is a Jewish child. So I had no chance either way to make it. So my father decided that we stay home, they go to work. So he says to my sister, says to her, my sister's name was Betty, you're going to take care of Toby. You stay home till we come home. My father went to the lumber yard working. My mom had to be registered every morning in the Gestapo, whatever job they sent her, that's where she went. They took from our house, cleaned the house, whatever furniture they wanted. The house was even locked, it doesn't matter. They broke the door, took what they wanted. But we were lucky they didn't touch me and my sister when they came to take everything. Only once do I remember a horrible sight, which lives with me forever. With both of us standing in the window looking out, and the little girl sitting in front of the stoop and crying. The parents might have gone to work, and she got out of the house. A German passes by, is annoyed with her crying, picks her up just like this with one hand, takes a pistol and shoots her. She falls on the floor. My sister and I got petrified, sitting and waiting for our parents to come home. When my parents come home from work, we tell them what happened. They give us no explanation. Or my father turns to my sister, from now on, you don't look out the window, sit underneath the table. And you know what? We obeyed. We learned to look at our parents and realize they cannot help us. So we didn't ask for anything. We kept quiet. I was young. My cousins were younger, learned to do that right away. You looked at your parents and you knew something changed and there's nothing in your power that you can do. My father was lucky. He was very well liked in Chodorov, in the community. He was liked by the Jews and non-Jews. He was a good guy, whatever. A guy comes over that knew my father all his life, and he tells him when he works in the lumberyard, he said, my father's name was Moshe. He says, Moshe, it's going to be a big aktia. Aktia means killing. They picked up in between people, whatever they wanted, put him on the train, and they never came back. But this was aktia. That means picking up and killing you. You better find a good hiding place, he says, not just something behind the door. My father comes home and tells it to my mom. He says, I have to find a good hiding place. And he does. Every house in Europe, it's not big, but the cellars is not from inside. The cellar is from outside. You go into the cellar from the street. It's a big door. A cellar is a whole floor down, deep into the earth, because it's cold there. Don't forget, there were no refrigerators either. I'm going back 75, 80 years. I'm going back a long time. So there was no refrigerator. So the cellar was for a lot of purposes, for food, for a lot of purposes. So he figured out, his sister lived on the ground, walking up ground floor. He figured out he'll make the cellar smaller, but to get into the cellar would be from his sister's apartment underneath the stove. He cut out like a small round, everything is built there. Steel built very heavy, not built like now. It's built. So he had to knock out a hole for us to crawl in. So he built a new wall. Where did he get his stuff? He worked on a lumber yard. So he would steal the brick and the mortar and build a wall. He made a wall, made the cellar a little smaller. He painted the wall, whatever he did, put stuff against it. Now, if you walk into the cellar, you shouldn't notice it. But to get into the cellar of his sister's apartment, I'm telling this because I'm so proud of my father, the way his thinking was. Not just hiding that you can be found, a hiding place that he thinks he can make it. And then he realized that if we roll in, all of us, all the way down, we will fall and might get hurt. So he made a platform from wood, put bedding. So when we rolled in from the hiding place, we rolled in on a platform, which was perfect. But once we were all in, he cut out the square underneath the stove and put a chain under it, pulled it down. So when you walked into the house, you did not see that any sign that anything is cut there. Sure enough, a couple of weeks later, the same guy comes and tells to my father, I think it's going to be this weekend, you better hide. He has the hiding place. It was a Friday night. We go into hiding. Sure, and he takes his sister into the hiding place because it was her apartment he was using. And she had 3 small children, 2 boys and a baby infant girl. So she takes a pillow to cover the child shouldn't hear in case she cries, to cover her. My paternal grandfather did not want to go. He says, I'd rather die now than later. Sure enough, Saturday morning, we hear knocking, the boots and screaming. The remainder of the family, my father's picked up. Late in the afternoon, they're coming into the kitchen where my grandfather is sleeping, and they tell him to go, and he says, no problem. They shoot him. Not a problem. They didn't look at you as a human. They looked at you as a roach. They looked at you as not human. That's why it's so easy in my mind, to kill a person, because he's looking at me that I'm not human to them. I'm a species that should be eliminated. That's the way I figure out you can shoot so people easily. Very, very late in the afternoon, Saturday, we thought we are already finished. The big cellar door opens up. I was not the youngest, but I was a little bit maybe too far from my mom. All I did very, very quietly said, just like that, got scared. My mom grabbed my hands, but the Germans heard a voice. That's when they opened the door, they heard a voice. They started walking down with the flashlight. My aunt put a pillow on the infant. We shouldn't hear. None of us were breathing from fear. As they're walking down, a big cat jumps out and gives a big meow, and the Germans started laughing. Oh, it's only eine Katze. It's only a cat. They turned around and walked away from the cell. So we realized we were safe this time. We stayed there a day or two longer. I don't know how long. My father was afraid to go out because we didn't know when it's finished. We finally came out. People came looking for us. We came out and we realized who was gone and who was left. My father's family was all gone. My mom's family was still there. Life kept going on the same way for another couple of weeks. Then Germans used language of deception. Even if you understood the deception, there was nothing you can do about it because there was no one there to help. No one. To the right, to the left, from the top, no one. Like the whole world didn't see or hear what's happening. The Germans said they're going to relocate us, the remainder Jews of Chodov, to the big city Lvov. Lvov is a beautiful big city, had a lot of Jews, and they had a very big ghetto there, which we knew about it. My father comes home and tells to my mother what he heard in the lumber yard, that what's happening. And he turns and he says, I don't believe them and we're not going. He doesn't believe them. What are you going to do? What do you mean don't believe? Where are we going to go? What are you going to do? He says, I don't know, but I'm not going. I don't believe them. And he's telling the people that he knows, family, whoever, I don't believe them. Don't go. But everybody says, where should we go? There's no place to go. You can run to the forest, which some single young boys did. And they made it. Went to the forest. So my father says, I'm going to look for someone to hide us. So my aunt, my mom's sister, she says, I'll go with you. I want to go with you. Let's look together. They look and they find. They find a woman. Her name is Stephanie Struck. She knew my parents. She knew my parents, grandparents, whatever, for years and years. She says, I'll hide you. It's a miracle, but it was there. Where are we going to go? She lives in the center of town, Main Street. She has a house, she has a family. After the house is a garden. After the garden, she has a barn. So my father says, we'll go into the barn. So she divides how we're going to do. He says, I'm going to make the barn a little bit smaller because the barns are not big. So like 4 feet by 4 feet. Picture 4 feet by 4 feet for 9 people. We're going in 9 people. Us 4, my aunt and uncle, and 2 younger children, 4 and 6, and my grandma, my maternal grandma, was still alive. She's going with us. He makes dividing the wall, and he gives her money to buy livestock. So this will give her an excuse to bring food to the barn. How else can she bring food? The neighbors will see. She has to buy food. She has to give us something. So she buys a pig and chickens. They're in one corner, and this other corner. We are 9 people. We the big children and women went into hiding earlier. We didn't know when it's going to be picking up to go, but the men were still working to the very last minute. It didn't take long. How did we go into the hiding? Don't forget it was curfew. So she would take us every night in a barrel with the big 2 wheels covered with hay, take every night one child, and then the women. So we were there in hiding. The men went to work. It didn't take long. They started a chaos. The people that were still working, realized that something is not right, and they all got scared. They realized not to believe them, but there was no place to go. So it was a whole chaos. People were running every place. My father and my uncle were able to make it to the hiding place. The remainder of the people were picked up, put on a train, and taken out of Hodor. 2 weeks later, she comes into our hiding place, says to us there wasn't a single Jew left in Hodor. Hodor lived Jews, I'm not exaggerating, 1,000 years. 1,000 years. Single, Juden rein. They finally got what they wanted, Juden rein. Clean of Jews. Sit still. Of course we're sitting still. What can we do there? They pick and chicken in one corner, we in the next corner. There was not much we can do. It's 4 feet by 4. If one person turns over, all of 9 of us have to turn. Because it was head and toe. What did we do during the day? It was pitch dark in the barn. We would go in the middle of the barn, stretch our legs, go back here. That's how maybe 3 months into the hiding place, 3 people are standing in the middle of the barn, stretching their legs in their pajamas, and the big barn door opens up. Stephanie's standing in front of it with a Ukrainian police right here. I always see him next to her. She sees, okay, and the barn is pitch dark. So when you open up the door, the sun was in. The pig and chicken, they were walking around loose, so they were running towards the door. She knew she has Jews in the barn. He didn't know. He was concentrating on the pig because they were coming towards him. She froze when she saw 3 people in the center of the barn. I don't know how long the freezing stood, but eventually she closed the door. He goes away. She comes back to us and tells us, "You have to leave because I cannot take it. My kids don't know about you. He saw you. I'm not taking any chances." My father says, "If he saw us, he would have picked us up. You know he wouldn't leave us here." She says, "I don't care. You have to go. You have to go. I give you 2 nights. I'm leaving the barn open. You have to leave." Nobody would take us. No way. We came back. One guy opened the door and looked at her. He said, "You're still alive?" He said to her, "I'll make believe that I didn't see you." That was okay, because the order was, if you see a Jew, you have to report. If he said he make believe, that means he's not going to report her. So she came back to the barn and said, "No way, no one will take us in. There's nothing we can do." What do? We decided to run to the forest. Okay, we are in the middle of the city. We have to pass the whole city. Then there was a small little lake which we can pass. It's not a big deal. And then there was the forest. Okay, we're getting dressed. My aunt and uncle, we are getting dressed, and my father, as we getting, my mom is dressing me, my sister's dressed, and he turns to my mom and says, "You know what? I changed my mind. Betty is old enough to do what I'm going to ask her." He gives my sister 2 or 3 addresses to people that he knew all his life, and says, and my mom says to me, "Toby, from now on, you hold your sister's hand and you listen to her." I realized something is happening, but I didn't understand what it was. I'm grabbing my sister's hand. I'm doing what I was told. He says to my sister, "Here's these people. I'm sure they'll take you in to hide you." He says to her, "Listen, I know the war will end. I don't know when. I know there was going to be survivors. It's just got to be. But if we don't come back, you have to leave this place. They're going to come people looking for survivors. You go. If not, you look for them." Here was addresses. He gave us addresses to. I had family in Palestine. There was no Israel then. How did I have family in Palestine? I'll go back a little bit. In 1937, you were able to go to Palestine if you had a visa. My mom had a sister. My father had a brother. They were both singles. They had a visa, one visa. They got married and they went to Palestine. I remember when it was 1937, we took him to the train to go to Palestine. And they both said to us, this time it looks different. Think about it. Try to run now. Don't wait for the last minute. Some people understood this is different, but yet we didn't learn. Going back to now what we are in the hiding place. So he says to my sister, "Here's addresses to your aunt and uncle in Palestine, and I'll give you addresses to United States." He had first cousins here. My aunt and uncle could not do that with their children. They were too young. They were 4 and 6. As we getting dressed, ready to go, Stephanie knew we're leaving tonight. She was, you know what? I don't think she was a human being. To me, she was an angel. Forgive me. She knows we're leaving, and she knows we have no chance making it to the forest. 9 people walking to the forest, even if it's the middle of the night. She goes to the Ukraine police and says to him, "You know who I am? I'm so-and-so. You know my sister. You're my family." And she says, "Why did you come? What did you look? What were you looking for? Why did you come?" He says, "Mrs. Strock, you bought livestock. My job is to register it. I came to register." And she talks again and talks, and he's giving her the same answer. So she realized he did not see us. He did not. She's walking back home, and she knows that we're leaving. She comes home. She has 2 children, a 19-year-old daughter and a 16-year-old son. They both didn't know about us. She turns to the children and tells them the story that she has 9 Jews hiding in her barn for the last 3 months, and what happened in the afternoon, and then we're leaving tonight. Her 16-year-old son, Tajik, turns around to mom and says, "You can't chase them. They're never going to make it. I will help you and save them." She says no. He says yes. Discussion was going on. He won. I'll never forget that sight. As we're ready to leave, Tajik comes in, opens the big barn door, and says to us, "My name is Tajik. You're not going anyplace. I'm going to make you a better hiding place, and we'll try." That's what we did. He went up 2 flights higher. He made a platform, and then higher. He made it bigger. The children were able to stand. We were able to sit, walk a little bit. And what he did, Tajik 16, one panel, he cut the inside out very wider, so us 4 children should be able to see the world outside. That's where we sat for 2 years. We had mice, lice, rats. We didn't have any food. Life was every single day a miracle. But we made it, thanks to Tajik, mainly. He watched that barn 24 hours. He dared. He was an unusual young man. He had friends, 16-year-old, play ball. One time, one of his friends takes a step ladder, puts it against the barn, and starts climbing. Tajik got scared. If he goes very close, puts his head, he could see someone moving there. And we got scared too. We laid down flat. What did Tajik do? He grabs the step ladder under his foot and says, "Why do you want to climb? You think I'm hiding Jews? Come on, the barn door's open. Let's go, I'll show you." That was Tajik. And he told his sister, "You stay away. You know part of this. It's me and mom. Because you're 19, you're socializing with the Germans. You might slip a word. You might forget. You don't know anything about it. You go away. It's me and mom." Food was scarce, of course. How can you feed 9 people? The only thing she could ever give us was bread and potato. That's all the diet. Every single day was a miracle, but Tajik and Stephanie, not so much Stephanie provided the food, and he provided the security. We had two pails for waste. It was Tajik. Didn't have much waste. It didn't have to be more than once a week. We would put it downstairs, and Tajik would take it out, clean it, put it back, give us 3 knocks. The same way, if they left food, they would leave it there, give us 3 knocks, and we had a system picking it up. We learned not to talk, not to sneeze, not to laugh, not to cry. We learned to live and to wait. To describe the fear is very difficult. That's your class now. No. To describe, I should look at the class. To describe the fear is impossible to describe because I did not understand what death is, but I understood fear looking at my parents. My father had a calendar. He knew when the Jewish holidays is. What he kept us, or I must give credit of keeping the peace between 9 people, 4 children and adults. He didn't let any. He was up a whole night to make sure none of us can scream at night. What if you dream and scream? Like my uncle one time wanted to know what time in the middle of the night. He takes a flashlight, looks, and of course, middle of the night, you see light. There's right away police with their flashlight. But Tajik with his also, and he said it was mine. Tajik watched that barn. How can I emphasize more who that Tajik was? It was every single day was a miracle. My father tried to tell us that he was hoping that he always said somebody has to make it. That was his idea. And what he was trying to tell us, you can't live with hate. If we make it, he says, you can't live with hatred. You have to remember, but go forward. You have to do things to survive, to go forward. He was a very unusual, smart man, trying to keep us, and he did. The last few weeks, I'm not going to go to too much detail because I want to go on. Okay. But if you have questions, I will go back and answer. Okay. The last few weeks before the war ended was terrible bombing, and so my father says, "Oh my God! If she the second year in hiding, she took in German officers to live in her house." He said, "What are you doing?" She says, "I'm doing it for me. I'm safer and I have more food." He couldn't complain. She did it for her. But can you imagine the barn door open and they walked in and out whatever they felt like it? And it was really, the second year was harder than the first because of the Germans living in the house. But we made it. But when the last few weeks before the war ended, it was terrible, terrible bombing, and every house lost their roof. So my father says, we are so close to end, and if we lose the roof, the Germans will see us, the neighbors will see us. What are we going to do? So he says, okay, since we had no tools, so as you walk, the barn is no concrete, it's earth. So he said, we'll dig in a hole for us to hide there in case we lose the roof. So how do? We had two pairs of waist. So these two pairs, with our hand, we dug out a hole, and the earth went to the second layer where we stayed. He dug out enough a hole for us nine to sit, four adults and the children on the head. So that's when we heard the Russian language. We knew it's got to be the Russians. However, the Ukrainian and Russia is very similar language. So you could not, but we knew the shooting stopped. The last few weeks, she went away, she left, and we had no food at all. So whatever we ate was, my parents would go out at night to look in the garden, whatever they had. So when we finally heard the Russian speaking, my father says, no, I'll go out first. What if it's the Ukrainians, not the Russians? So they'd kill me, but you stay here. He comes out and he does see it's the Russians. I was liberated 1944, June of 1944. We went in hiding 42, came out in 44. When we came out, none of us were able to walk. We looked like skeletons. We looked at each other, and did we make it? Is it possible? The Russian young soldiers, I never forget the soldiers, say, yes, you made it. You're liberated. But you can't. So we wanted food. We were so very hungry. They said, don't eat. If you eat, you'll die. Again, we were lucky. So the Russians took my family to one. We knocked on someone's door that my father knew. She was shocked that we were alive. She could have killed us, which many were killed that way, but she took us in. I'll never forget, she gave me a bath. After 2 years, a bath. And then she gave us, it was a clean, crispy sheet on the bed. It was heaven. And she nursed us every day, a spoon of food. It didn't take long. We were very anxious to get out to see who else survived. When we came out, 31 people survived Khodov, all in hiding. No one came back from the ghettos. And what we did find out, when they put all the Jews on the train to take him out of the city, they never took him to Lvov. They took him outside of the city and shot them all. My father was right not to believe. That's why I'm here, and those that went in hiding made it. It was some young adults went into the forest. It was two groups of young people. They had two hiding places in the forest. They used to hide during the day, go stealing food at night. One time, somebody followed them, but they had two hiding places. They never went, always one this and one this. So somebody followed them. So one, and they gave them out. So a German came and threw a grenade in, but the other, so it survived. Some young people survived in the forest. You could, they did. The rest were in hiding, but none Jews. 19, we stayed in our hometown, Chodorov, till 1945 when the war ended. When the war ended, just like my father predicted, people came looking for survivors, picking them up from wherever they killed, taking over to the German, out of Europe, out of Ukraine, out of Poland, to the American zone where the American occupied. That by itself is a trip that is to talk about. But I wound up being in the displaced persons camp in Austria. It was in Abelsberg. It was an army camp. It was Jews from all over Europe. That's where I stayed from 45 to 1949. We had school right away. We had teachers. Even if you didn't have teachers, everybody was anxious to learn, to teach. And everyone who survived had one motive, making it. Wasn't busy go to loot the Germans or kill the Germans or do anything, just finding peace in making where can we settle, finding and start a life. Well, the doors didn't open up till 1949, although in 1948 we already had an Israel, but they only wanted young people. They had no place for old people. My parents were too old, so we couldn't come. Later on, we decided to go to United States. So 1949, I came to United States, to New Orleans, not New York. I'll stop here if you want to ask any questions. Anybody? Anybody? Go ahead.
First, I just want to say thank you for sharing our story. Thank you for being here. My question is,
I'm careful.
how did you cope with the boredom? You were in silence.
Okay, boredom. Okay, you're right. I should have said some. No. Okay, she used to bring us up her old sweaters. So we ripped the sweaters. My grandma taught me, my sister, my cousin, how to knit and crochet. My father made sure to teach in case we make it. I have to know the multiplications in case we make it. This was on his mind. And he was telling, if we asked questions, he was the one who kept us. And boredom, if you're hungry, there's not much you can do. Hunger is a very, very painful feeling. You know, till today, I never go any place without a sandwich in my bag, in case I'm hungry. So if you're hungry, you lay down and rest. And but he kept us going with hope that somebody has to make it, and he thought it's us. Good question. Anybody else?
Yes. When you were finally liberated, like you and your family from with the Russians, how did the Russians treat you?
Very well. We were 31 people, so they told us live together, because if you live separate, they might kill you, which many people were killed. And they survived. They came to their hometown and they wanted their stuff back from whoever they gave it to. Oh, my father had the same experience. They watched us. They watched us right away. And my father right away, we had food right away, because my father, when he had a store, he had no money. Okay, you have to understand, she didn't do it for money. I want you to understand that. That woman did not do it for money because we didn't have any to give her. Okay, she did it because she was who she was, an angel. We never called her by her name. We never used her name. We used her prince. We used to call her. I don't know her first name. We used to the prince, the queen, the princess, like you. It's the above. But what my father had is material. He had a store, so he was smart enough to hide his material. He had sacks for them. So when we went into hiding, he gave her a sack full of material. Material in Europe is a big deal because you don't have ready-made clothing. So you need a material you need one suit, you need one coat. So so that's what we gave her when we went in hiding. Then she came later on and says to us, I have no more money to buy food. So my father took a sack full of material like this big, I never forgot, and he gave her a piece of material. She says to him, I thought you told me you gave me everything. He said, I saved some for an emergency. So when we came out from hiding, he still had material. So he sold a piece of material and we all ate. So she came to us for food. But she didn't want anybody to know that she hid Jews. She was so afraid that she used to meet him behind, nobody should see, and he should give her the material she should be able to eat. When we left Chodorov in 45, we had, only thing we had, each us had a house. We had a house, my aunt had a house, my grandma. So we didn't give it to her because she was afraid to take it. The neighbors will know why did Moses give you a house? What did you do for him? So he went to court and sold the house. We gave her money, and everybody saw that she paid us for the house. So that's the only thing we had, the only thing we left for her is the houses. Good question. Go ahead.
After you split from the house, you transferred from your house in Minnesota to the barn. Did it stop mentioning about moving? Like, did you guys move behind?
A little louder.
Like, after a while, you started to stop mentioning like how you guys had a baby
Right,
and only about 2 boys.
right.
So did you guys move?
This family didn't make it. The only family that made is us, my mom's sister with the older children. They were picked up the next train, the next pickup, because they always picked up people. My father tried to save the 2 boys. We had the ones picked up, they were on the street and they were picked up, put on the train. What we made, my mom's sister, 2 younger children, 4-year-old and 6-year-old, they made it there in Israel. The 4-year-old boy that didn't talk, we thought he'll never talk. There in Israel, he became an Israeli pilot. So this is something to talk about.
You mentioned that after liberation, the most important thing was making it.
Right.
I was wondering how you were able to so confidently put yourself into the mindset where vengeance did not exist, or maybe it did exist, but you were able to repress it. How did you
You don't do it the one time. You do it as you go along. All along, we're thinking of making it. So my father used to say, if you're going to hate and you're going to live with hate, you're not going to make it. The one that you're hating is going to survive, but you're not because you're living full of hate. How can you make it? We have to rebuild the idea. You know what? The most children were born was 1948, 49 in the DP camps. There were survivors, single people, they didn't match. Trust me, they never matched. You alone, I'm alone, let's get married and have children. We need names for our parents. We need names. It's not a one time, it's a continuous discussion. We have to make it. I remember, I'll go back for 2 minutes. My husband survived with 2 other brothers. Older one and 2 brothers. They were in Germany. I was in Austria, in DP camps. They were in Germany. So my husband, so the older brother, he says, I'll go to work and I want you to learn a trade because if you're going to go someplace, make a life. So you have to have a trade. He was the oldest. He'll go to work and they should go learn a trade. So one time, my husband comes home with a bicycle. His oldest brother says, where'd you get the bicycle, Harry? He says, it was in someone's house. I took it and I went. He says, you took it? You stole? Is that what you survived for? What were your parents thinking? What are you thinking? How are you going to make your life when you go forward? By stealing? Or give the bicycle back. If they want to lend it to you, or give it to you, or buy it. He went back with the bicycle. That's an example. Each one, it's not a one-day process. It's a continuous. And each one was thinking, we have to make it. Like this oldest brother went to Israel and he built an Israel. He had children there. it's making it that counted more than revenge. We worry about revenge. I speak. One of the kids asked me exactly, did you ever want revenge? I said, I have my revenge. I'm here. I'm here. I made it. I have Jewish children, grandchildren, and and one little great grandson. This is what the Jewish revenge is. Jewish revenge is not to kill. The same girl writes me a letter. Kids write sometimes. There was a high school girl. I never knew you can have revenge without killing. This is process. This is not a one day. It's looking forward of making it. These people that went to Israel, their aim was to build a country, and they did. Not revenge. Revenge in a different way. Any other question?
So you lost a lot of people and friends, but how did you guys honor them or kind of cope with this death?
You don't cope. You always talk about it. Not me, because thank God I had my parents. So I'm very unique. I'm so grateful. I had my father, he was 93 and 94. Every Friday when my father was Orthodox and he never changed his religion. He never blamed God. He blamed humanity. Every Friday when we used to sit at the table, he used to say to us, see, I have a knife, I have bread, I've cut, I can eat all I want. His lesson was, you don't have to want what you don't have. Whatever you have, you should be content. I was fortunate, but like my parents, my mother never wanted to talk about it. She right away said, I don't remember anything. She remembered nothing. You don't cope, but you remember. And what you do, you try to have children so you can name after your parents. My husband wanted to first, I gotta have my name. I gotta have a son. I have a name for my father. His father has 3 names. This is how Jews cope.
So when your father gave you the addresses to go to your sister, and they were going to the bars, and you guys were able to the addresses, how would you have gotten to those addresses?
My sister was 12 years old, walking. The city was not that big, even the outskirt of the city. She was 12 and a half, she was 12 and a half years old. She's a big girl. Here she's a child, there she's a big girl. She would have found the place.
Yeah, so you told us like the horrors that you had to go through and just how incredible you are to be here right now. It's insane. It's awesome to have you hear this experience. But I was just wondering what it was like to finally know that you could step outside the barn and know that you were liberated and free and that you could go
I'm telling you, when we came out, we looked at each other, 9 skeletons, nobody could walk. I was probably the only one who could walk because I was very heavy when I went into hiding. Is it possible? The guy said, yes, we made it. We're Russians. We're okay. It was a miracle of miracles. I think it was the greatest miracle. To have a woman like this, but there were others in my time. I don't want to forget, my parents were always in touch with Stephanie and her children. We had always in touch, always. We knew when she died. Tajik died young. The Chernobyl explosion, we think that was the reason why he died young. Ukrainians had the Chernobyl explosion. But we had nothing to give her. Nothing. We had nothing. We were supported in the DP camps. We were supported by the Jewish agencies from the United States, the Hayas and the Joint. We had nothing. You couldn't go to work. First of all, you didn't have a trade and you couldn't go to work. Nobody let you work. You lived. Anyway, but when we came to New Orleans, we still had nothing. We had nothing. It took a little while. But the minute we had an extra money, we asked them, what do you need? Material. That's what we kept sending. So when my parents always said, when they left, they died, my sister took over. And when my sister passed away, she passed away of breast cancer at 64. I was left and I was not in touch. So I knew I had to do something. So I went to Israel, picked up my 2 cousins, and we went back to Chodorov to find who is there. And I found her great-granddaughter. I am in touch with her till today. I send money to her till today. My biggest charity is sending money to her. They now live in Spain. She said they're going to go back to Khodorov. They didn't want to stay there because they wanted to take her husband. The Ukrainians wanted to take her husband to the army. She didn't want to go there in Spain. So I send money to Spain. I didn't forget. I never will. And I have her in Jerusalem among the righteous among the nations. Any other questions? Go ahead.
Like when you were hiding in the beginning, like when your parents took you like outside and they went to work, did you have to wear your armor during the time?
Yeah, no, it's didn't go outside and do any of it. No. That's why we didn't go because I didn't want to wear that. We stayed home.
When you first came from America, what was your like?
Okay, good question. I came to New Orleans, which New Orleans, my father never goes the way everybody else goes. He didn't go to the war, and after the war, he says, everybody's going north, I'm going south. I'm going south. He wanted to go south because he knew he remembered the Russian immigration in early 1900s, late 1890, with a big Russian immigration to the United States. They went to the south and became peddlers. You know what a peddler is? Peddler is you take a chest, you take some whatever you want to sell. You're full of Blushman. Anybody remember the full of No. Not your time either. So you knock on the door, you sell something, and then you come collect every week $1. So my father says, I have no trade, but I'm good with what I have. I will become a peddler. And he did. He did. Life, we didn't come on our own. Jewish agencies paid for our trip to New Orleans. But when we came to New Orleans, we came on the army boat, General Black. Some went to Texas, some to Florida. We stayed in New Orleans. The Jews picked us up, took us. I remember it came September, which was just before the Jewish holiday Rosh Hashanah, Jewish New Year. And my father says to her, I need a kosher meal. He never wavered. And I need a synagogue, an Orthodox synagogue. She says, no problem. And she brings us, I want to tell you that. She brings us to this Jewish family, and we are immigrants. Although there, between my people, I felt okay. But let me tell you, when I came to this Jewish house, beautiful home, it was a holiday, table set beautifully, it's a holiday. I felt like I'm out of space. I didn't feel. We looked at each other and we weren't dressed right, we didn't look right, we didn't talk right. You know what? I felt if it was there a hole, I would bury myself. It's how uncomfortable. It takes time. So we're sitting and talking, and we're sitting down, and this man says something, I don't remember what. All I remember is he says to my father, do you want to say something? So my father gets up to say something. Maybe I don't know what he was talking. All I remember, I was 16 when I came to the United States. All I remember, his hand putting up, he says like this, stop, forget what was. You're here now, go forward. Nobody wanted to hear. The American Jews were not interested. That's right. That's why we didn't talk for many, many years till we felt comfortable in our skin. Same thing was in New York. Nobody wanted to know. Nobody wanted to know. It was there. You're here now. Make a life go forward. So you go forward. I must say, the survivors are the best immigrants you ever had in the United States. They all went forward, all working. I was working till I was 80 years old. Oh, not just working, producing, and their children, all educated high. Education here is most important. And you can get it. It's a great country. I remember when I came to New Orleans, I didn't know a word of English. I was probably able to go in 4th grade, but I couldn't speak a word of English. So they put me in 1st grade. I didn't care. I had to learn the language. So I went during the day, a whole day to school. At night, I went to school, learn English. The end of the year, I graduated 8th grade. Everybody was very proud of me. Everybody helped me. So they wanted me to it's the first time I was supposed to speak for the kids. So I said, I don't know what to say. Anyway, okay, I wrote whatever I wrote. I come in front of the kids just like I'm here in front of you. Now, how can I burden you with something so ugly as my life? But I have to show you that I have a life now. So I ripped the paper and I said to the kids, thank you for letting me in here. Thank you for helping me to be where I am. It's a great country. I can tell you there was no other like it. You should use it and enjoy it. Take advantage of the freedom that you have here. That's the speech that I gave. Realize the speech that I had in mind was not appropriate. Just like you now, I am ready. It took years for us to speak, and I am fulfilling my father's wishes. He always used to say, we have to tell the world. The world must know. Not that the world changed much. It didn't. Anti-Semitism today is wow. Okay? Teaching doesn't help, maybe yes. Anyway, any other questions?
Yeah, you mentioned that your mom was always closed off about
Yeah, she didn't talk. She knew nothing. Like we made a tape for Spielberg. Spielberg made tapes for every survivor. She says, I don't remember anything. I don't know anything.
Was there ever a time in your life where you were not comfortable sharing, and then I guess B?
No, many, no, nobody shared. First of all, we always socialize with our own, with survivors, we're comfortable. Whenever we meet with each other, we would say, how did you make it? Where were you? First question. Once you settle that, then we can socialize. Within you become I'm comfortable. I can't say I'm not comfortable. I'm comfortable, I'm speaking already for 4 or 5 years, okay? But I'm comfortable. I'm comfortable to tell and ask questions and take, sometimes if kids don't ask, I try to get questions. Most survivors are, okay? They carry a burden. Their kids carry a burden too, no doubt about it. Especially the first child has issues, but it's okay. Any others?
When you were little with your sister at home and you saw that little kid just be killed by a German, was that the turning point for you and your sister to realize that nothing is ever going to be the same?
Yeah. No, I think we realized the first day that the Germans came in that life is never going to be the same. I didn't understand death, but I understood fear. I understood fear, very much so. And
As you began your life in the United States, what did you pursue for the rest of your life? How did your husband?
I met my husband. I came from New Orleans for a wedding to a friend. We all got married very young, and I stayed in. My sister moved to New York. In fact, my sister married one of the young men that was in hiding in the forest. When we came out from the forest, there was young. She was older than I, so she was a teenager, and he was probably a year or so older, and they had a relation, not a conversation, whatever. But when he came to the United States, he kept corresponding with her, and when we came later because he came earlier. He married her. So did I answer your question a little bit? Okay, I met my husband. We got married, stayed in New York. My sister stayed in New York. I have 2 children. And let me tell you something else. My sister and I could not have children. And the doctor said right away, you were malnourished in the young years. You didn't have proper food. Took time. I had 2. My sister had only 1. She's only 1 son. I was lucky to have a son and a daughter, both high educated, great American people. Great. Couldn't ask for better quality people.
You're going back to school.
I did go back to Chodorov. It was never rebuilt because it's Ukraine. It's not Poland. Poland was rebuilt by America. Ukraine is not because it's Ukraine. It was never rebuilt. Never. I couldn't find any trace of my house. It was destroyed. The bombing never rebuilt. They poor as ever before. I have nothing that attaches me there. Nothing. But I did go.
You said that once you're liberated, before, how many were there to detain?
We had about 5,000 Jews downtown. Lvov has a lot of Jews. Yes.
You had highlighted that anti-Semitism is still around today.
Oh, big time.
And a lot of these students are, seeing on the news SWAT stickers that are graffiti all over the place. And I just want to know if you can share like your thoughts about what you're seeing now.
I'm upset. I'm terribly
They
upset.
realize what an effect those symbols have on people.
I am very upset. I am petrified for my kids. Not me, I'm on my way out. My kids. Maybe not so much my kids, but my grandkids. Because I don't see, although this is United States, it's a different country. There's a balanced system a little bit. I'm always looking at it. But I don't see the politician talk, but they didn't act. And what bothers me, I don't see the Jewish leadership acting. They talk. Stop talking. Act. Call it what it is. Call it. You've got to tell what it is. When it happened in Pittsburgh, the kids. When it happened in Pittsburgh. So I'm looking at myself. When it happened in Germany, the Polish Jews didn't react. When it happened in Pittsburgh, I didn't see any Jews reacting in New York. You know what? I cried without a stop. Can't you see? Can't you all people see? Can't you add the dots? Can't you scream loud and clear? Name it what it is. Don't cover it up. Don't say, oh, she didn't mean what she said. Oh, we'll make it all racism. No, it's not racism. It's anti-Semitism in a different shape or form. I am upset. But I'm not a leader. I try to talk to leaders when I can. They do. They're telling me they're talking behind the scenes, that they're talking, they're working, to teach to especially colleges now. Forget it. I am terribly upset. But I'm still hoping this country's good. That's what this country, the leadership is still, I think, is a better chance than any other. In Europe, I think this country is a little bit different. And it might come forward. I'm hoping. I won't be around. And then I say to myself, I tried my best, but it's not enough. I feel it's not enough. I wish I could do more. If I was 10 years younger, I probably could. Anybody figure out my age? No?
87.
No, not in 86. I was born in the beginning of December, so I was just 86. Any other questions? Okay. Can you explain what?
What happened in Pittsburgh? Because I'm not really sure.
Why? A guy went to a synagogue, he's killing because you're a Jew. I'm killing you because you're a Jew. He said it clear. What else do you want? How much more clear can you say it? He didn't cover it. He went to a synagogue and killed people.
How would you describe the after the war? How would you describe the post period of
How I describe after the war?
yeah, like maybe the post period or like the period of Germany.
The Poles, Poles is watching the Germans. The Germans could not have succeeded to do such a great job if they didn't have the option to say it was not about.
I mean, it's not how long, like, you have a post-traumatic stress situation, your life again.
I think that Sometimes I get fear when my grandkids, oh my God, I get so afraid I freeze. Yes, it is. But you learn to, as years go by, I'm older already, so I learned a lot. I learned languages.
You talked a lot about like kind of what kind of started this whole mess that you want to find yourself in and how to survive. But how do you think we can find the best way to prevent these things from ever happening again and prevent these kind
But
of
not allowing hatred. Why hate the Jews? What did they do? I used to ask my father, why are you sitting here? What did you do, Daddy? He says, I did nothing. I cannot tell you. So he used to say, maybe if we make it and you will be older, maybe you'll figure out, well, I made it and I'm older and I'm teaching and I'm working, I'm listening, I'm doing everything you want to hear. I read 2 papers, I watch 3, 4 television, I don't watch one. No, did I figure out why? No, I don't know why. I find all the excuses I'll give you. Don't match to hate. So vehemently now it's oh, I love the Jews, but I hate Israel. It's the same thing. It's just different. Spelled different. It's tough.
How did your children react to learning about your history?
I see. My husband didn't speak as well as I. He wasn't as verbal. I started very young. Even when they were, I used to say, I never had a doll. I started very young telling them. I never had this, I never had the, slowly. Oh, my kids are full of it. They know me. And my grandkids too. I did the same with the grandkids. Started early. I never had what you have. I never rode a bike. I never had this. I never knew this. I never understood this. And I had to learn on my own. I had to learn to swim when I was 16. I say, and you learning, that's how I started. And then I gave them the full of it when they were older.
When you first came to the United States, how did the American Jews treat you guys? Did they welcome you? Were they in some type of way?
No, they didn't ask questions. They paid for it. All the survivors that came, two institutions paid for it. Joint in the Hayas, coming here, giving us 3 months rent, putting us up, and helping getting a job for my father. My father didn't speak a word of English. He had no trade. She goes to give him she brings him to a storekeeper to hire him. So he says, okay, come work on Saturday. My father says, I don't work on Saturday. Don't speak English. You don't work on Saturday. What do you want me to do with him? She says to the guy, you have to hire him. Okay, so he hired him. And then my father proved himself. And he said to my father, you know what? You're the best thing I ever had. Okay. So you can hire a person without a language, but he's still good. Anybody else? Okay, so I want you to, first of all, be my witness. I need witnesses. That means when I'm gone and somebody comes and tells you that it's a lie, deniers, you have him now. Can you imagine? Survivors are dying. Another, I don't think 10 years, maybe there won't be one left. They're going to come out more deniers. So you will have to stand up for me whenever you find one. Is that a promise? Thank you. Then that's one promise. The next promise is you have to see to understand. Maybe you can figure out why the hatred is so great. Can you Google and find out why? I'm Googling. I'm learning. I learned to Google to find out why. What is he such a bad person? The bright people, they work hard. They invented the inventions are left and right. Without the Jewish inventions, where would polio? Who invented polio? A Jew. So why? I'm looking why. I'm Googling it every day why. Can't find the answer. Your job to find out. And I want you to tell your parents, talk about me. See their opinion. What do they think? Talk to your parents, to your friends. Maybe by talking, maybe some good will come out. Maybe. I'm hoping. I'm relying on you. Thank you for listening. And I wish you a great life, success. You can make it here if you want. Am I right?
Yes.
Okay, so I'll stay here. I'll stay here. Is that good? Do you want to cover somebody? What do you want me, what do you want to sit here?
Here, I got it. There you go, I got it.
I'll move it over to the other.
I got it.
I feel good.
You guys can go to your next period. I'm just up there.